Jeezy, crazy. Now that I'm listing them out, I'm realizing there's a lot of these just-a-guy villains in Bond movies. I get why people weren't really fond of Dominic Greene. I mean, by and large, he was just another businessman villain whose machinations amounted to nothing more than a land deal, which was in actuality a con job to gain control of a nation's would-be dictator by way of his water supply. Credit where it's due, it's a clever scheme with eerily realistic undertones regarding corporate domination over government, of which we know nothing about. I will also say that at least this actually has bigger stakes beyond the bad guy wants money trope. People are struggling to survive without resources that are being siphoned away from them, and what's worse is that in order for them to get those resources back, they're going to have to bow to a tyrant who's going to allow Greene and Quantum to gouge the country of all of its assets. So, yeah. Greene isn't really that bad of a villain when it comes to the scheme and the stakes, and as an extra bonus, to date, he is actually the only nemesis that Daniel Craig's Bond actually has to go toe-to-toe with in a brawl, and it's actually a really well-staged brawl, with Greene lashing out at Bond maniacally like a wild animal. It was definitely one of the more memorable things about the movie as a whole. I suppose the ultimate problem with Greene is that, at the end of the day, he is just another little fish in a big pond, and honestly, we kinda had that in the previous movie. Except that where Casino Royale had the smarts to build Le Chiffre up to be more than what he was, but more on him later, Greene, on the other hand, we know he's just another errand boy for Quantum, and even though his demise has an incredible air of dark comedy about it, it only works because in the grand scheme, he's just another low rung on a bigger ladder. I think Quantum would have benefited better if they kept the focus on Mr. White being the big bad of this movie, with Greene as his henchman. Then, when Mr. White ultimately fails, Quantum gets dissolved by Spectre, and Mr. White goes into forced exile, and boom! Now we know how he ended up where he was in Spectre. As it is, because we know Greene is still not a top-level operative in the organization, you feel like we're just meandering in one spot for the entire span of the movie, and it's a shame, because there's a lot of good stuff in here, whether it be because of his schemes, his sadistic streak, or the confident performance by Mathilde Amalric. Take your pick. So while Greene may be just a guy, and his character in the big picture has much ado about nothing, at least there's enough nuances to make him, well, a bit above average.